Hello and welcome to CarWale, and that is the new XL6. This of course is the Kia Carens, and this is not your regular product to product comparison, because if it were, then the Kia Carens would have easily won, and we will tell you that in the later part of the video as to why. But the Carens is also 4 lakh rupee more expensive than the XL6 in this petrol powered automatic top spec versions, and that is a lot of money. Instead, what we want to do today is talk about them as 6-seaters. Now consider you can comfortably afford the XL6 and you want a car that you're going to use as a 6-seater almost all the time. So whether you're running to the mall, you're going to the airport, or you're carpooling while going to office or taking road trips. So we're going to compare these cars. Essentially what we're going to do, not really compare them, but set the benchmark with the Kia and say this is how the last row is, this is how the boot space is, this is how the second row is, and then bring in the XL6 and tell you how it compares and whether it's worth just saving that money because of what the XL6 delivers on that front, or spend more and get the Kia. Let's start with the Carens to set the baseline. Now this top spec Karen gets this one-touch tumble function. It is slow, but it's convenient and it completely gets out of the way. So getting in and out is not a problem at all. You also have a really low sill height. So whether you're in saris or starched pants, it's very easy to get in and get out. Also, if you're clumsy like me, there is nothing that'll get in the way and hurt your shins. So that's pretty convenient too. And then when you step inside, there is enough space here for you to turn around and then comfortably sit. Now you don't have one-touch tumble or tumble of any kind on the XL6. So to get in, you have to lift this lever and push the seat in front. Also, when you put it back, unlike on the Carens, which just goes back to the same setting, here every time you have to move it back and find the right setting. So a little less convenient, clearly. The sill height though again is not high, so that's convenient, but as you can see, there's barely any place to get in. So if you're not careful, chances are when you're getting in, you'll hit your knee, you might hit your ankle. There are lots of things that you can hit. But again, like on the Carens, once you get in, there's enough room to move around and settle down. So on that front, they're pretty comparable. Now, seating in the second row is extremely important, or equally important in a 6-seater. And on the Carens, and we've said that in the past, it makes for a really comfortable place to be, especially the captain seats version. The seats are large, they're comfortable. You can adjust the backrest, you can adjust it for fore and aft movement. And we've set the front seat according to my driving position, and this seat has been set so there's just this much space, and that's all you really need. And this is exactly what we're going to do on the XL6 as well, so it'll give you a good visual representation of space. There is enough space to put your feet down, and overall it's a nice place to be. The only challenge really is this, the air purifier. When you get in, it always hits the knee, so maybe Kia needs to move this somewhere else. Even in terms of feeling of space, white interiors, big windows, a nice place to be, the Carens. And now let's see what the last row is like. Now the Carens has one of the more comfortable third rows I have been in, and so it's a great benchmark to have, and something that we can compare the XL6 with. Now in terms of positives, you've got decent space. I mean, there's lots of headroom, clearly, as you can see. And in terms of knee room, my knee is just about touching the seat. It's not digging in, so there is some freedom of movement in that sense. You can also adjust the backrest quite a way back, and the moment you do that, the seat scope comes up, so you've got some amount of thigh support as well. You can tuck your feet under the seat, there's space to put here, and you can have comfortable seating all around. You also get your own cup holder, you've got a charging port, and you've got your own AC vent. So these are the positives. Things that could be better. This is a small window line and you sit low, so you can feel slightly hemmed in because of this huge black plastic part here. The other bit is that the wheel arch intrudes inside, so if you want to use the full width of the floor, it doesn't, I mean, you can do that, but it's not the most comfortable thing to do. But otherwise, I think it's a very nice place to be, especially if you're going to do long distances, highways, intercity trips. I don't think people in the last row are going to complain. Now, when you move from the third row of the Carens into the third row of the XL6, the difference is really stark. Let's start with the positives. First thing is that you have this big window. So if you like looking out, you would enjoy sitting in the XL6 because that feeling of being hemmed in, which is there on the Carens, is not as obvious on this one. And then you also don't have the wheel arch intruding so much in the floor area. You still have a little bit of it, but it doesn't take away from the comfort, which is, or kind of flexibility of moving your foot around, which happens on the Kia Carens. But that's where the good things end compared to the Carens. So the XL6 doesn't have any dedicated AC vents for the third row of passengers. You only have one cup/bottle holder, no place to put the cell phone like you have on the Carens. You don't have a dedicated charging port. You have one 12-volt socket there, but if you want to use that, you'd have to plug it and run the wire across your co-passenger's laps, which is not very convenient. But more importantly, the space is less here compared to the Carens, be it the headroom or the knee room. Again, we've set it exactly like it was in the Carens, the driving position to mine, and then the second row with just that much amount of space, which we'll show you in a bit. So here, your knees actually do dig into the seat, which wasn't the case with the Carens. And then when you look at the seat itself, it's nowhere as comfortable. You don't even have that sort of adjustability. This is the most that you can recline, unlike the Carens. And then so you can only come forward, which is again super uncomfortable. So if you want to spend a short time, short distances, going to the mall, going to the airport, this is fine. But long distance driving, this just doesn't work. So if your six-seater is going to, or you're going to use your six-seater for more highway driving, just pay extra and get the Carens. The second row on the XL6 again is not as comfortable as the captain seats on the Carens, but the difference between the Carens last row and the XL6 last row, that stark difference isn't as pronounced here. Between the two, of course, the Carens is more comfortable, but here you get, again, you get a large window area. You have place to put your feet under there, and overall it doesn't feel substantially smaller than the Carens. But the seats are not as comfortable, and that feeling of space, mainly because of this AC and this whole bar running in right up your in front of your face, does take that feeling of space away, which you don't have in the Carens, which Carens of course feels roomier because the vents are in the roof, so you've got this clear view there. So yeah, not a reason not to buy this if you're sitting in the second row, but Carens is definitely more comfortable. The Kia Carens has a 216 liters boot space with all the seats in place. Now these the last row folds down, but we've kept it in a comfortable straight up position, and when you do that, you can put one cabin size baggage and one average sized Indian holiday kind of bag in this quite comfortably. It also has some storage underneath, so if you were to remove this tray, you can in fact fit in a let's go to America big size suitcase too, along with of course one small cabin bag. But this is with all the seats in place, and when you fold the last row, then it can take everything that we have here clearly lots more. So a very handy, practical, large boot with as a 4-seater, even as a 6-seater. Now the Carens is set a pretty difficult benchmark in our opinion, and then it doesn't start well for the XL6 because it has a measured boot space as per the company, which is lesser than the Carens. This is 209, that is 216, but let's see how many bags can it take. The Indian bag, it doesn't completely fit inside. These seats are not completely straight, slightly reclined, just as on the Carens. And then when you take the cabin baggage, again, it won't fit like this, so you will have to find a way to squeeze in. But if you do straighten out these seats completely, then suddenly there is enough and more boot space to hold these two bags, but still not as good as the Carens, clearly. Now this too has some storage under the boot, and we'll see with that removed, does the storage get any better. This is a 2-piece unit, so you can decide whether it's more convenient or not. The big one. So we're not sure whether it'll close with that, but it can definitely hold this. When you tilt it, the cabin baggage, well, not so sure. Again, not so sure. So clearly, even with this has a deeper sub-storage in the boot, but even then I think you can put in more bags in the Carens. And now when you drop the seat, here again boot space, measured boot space, or the one that offered by the manufacturer is lesser. But just like on the Carens, you can, or at least we have run out of stuff to put in, and it still can carry more. The only thing is that this is slightly narrower compared to the Carens, so if you've got a little more luggage, you'll have a little more flexibility with the Carens, where you can shift the luggage around and fit in more. But still pretty practical, I would say, but definitely better on the Carens. As far as ride comfort is concerned, the Carens and the XL6 come across as well suited for two very different jobs. The Carens runs a slightly firmer setup. As a result, at slower speeds, it doesn't do a great job of isolating its occupants from the road underneath, and this holds true for passengers in all 3 rows. However, as the speeds or loads rise, the Carens feels more settled. It rides flatter, doesn't wallow much, and be it bumps or square-edged troughs, it rarely crashes into them. It is a better setup for long distances for sure. The XL6 is comparatively softer sprung, so when commuting in the city or going to the mall or even heading out to the weekends through traffic, the XL6 feels comfortable and absorbent. It is in fact more pampering than the Kia at slower speeds, but at higher speeds and over poorly surfaced or undulating roads, it doesn't feel as composed as the Carens, and it is worse for the last row occupants, as the car tends to bounce on its springs more than we would have liked. As we had promised at the start of the video, we will now tell you why the Carens is the better product. It is significantly more expensive, yes, but it does almost everything better than the XL6. To begin with, it is easier, more responsive and more enjoyable to drive. It is more spacious all around. It has better seats, and given its higher price tag, it's unsurprising that it is better equipped too. However, when it comes to ride quality, boot space and practicality, the two are close, but again, I think the Carens does a better job. So if you can afford the XL6 comfortably and you're going to use a car as a 6-seater more often than not, which one should you buy? Should you save money or spend extra and get the Carens? Well, if you're going to be spending most of your time on highways, outside, with the car, with 5-6 people and luggage, take the Carens. Spend that 4 lakh extra, because for that you're getting a car that's more comfortable, that rides better, and of course you get a better engine and gearbox combo, and it's nicer to drive. Plus more features. So if you want to take your yearly holiday, you want to spend money on your birthday bashes, anniversaries, and go out with your friends more often than not, buy the XL6 only if you're going to spend time driving this 6-seater mainly in the city. But if you're going to spend time on the highways, we say spend the extra, live the pauper life, but do that in style and comfort.